Hello everyone, my name is Joel Ferguson, and today we're going to be going over some time management. So in college, is there ever times where you feel like you're stressed out trying to balance both studying in your classes and then clubs and extracurricular activities? Well, if you do, then today we're going to try and give you some tips on making sure that your schedule is ready to go so that you're never feeling too stressed out or suffering with your mental, physical, or spiritual lifestyle. So the first thing we need to know about time management is how to prioritize.
All right, everyone. So the first thing we're going to want to do is prioritize our time. So according to the 2007 Year College Experience by Gardner, Juller, and Barefoot, prioritizing usually takes place after you've already established some goals and some objectives. Next, what you want to do is split those items, so whatever they're going to take up your time, into 4 areas, and this can drastically help your time management lifestyle. If something is urgent and important to you, such as a final exam that could determine if you stay in a program, important but not urgent, such as an award ceremony you must attend next week. Urgent but not important, such as going to the gym with a friend. Or neither urgent, not important, such as watching TV. The idea is to not allow the things that are important but not urgent to go so long with no preparation that they become important and thus cause time conflicts. Instead, we want to take care of the small things so that they don't interfere with our bigger time obligations. Along with this, we want to follow this chart after labeling your time obligations to decide on what action you need to take.
Now that we know how to prioritize, let's go ahead and make sure we know how to get your planner set up.
So after prioritizing everything, the next thing we want to do is be able to organize our day. So first, make sure that you're keeping the big picture in mind. Maybe your goal in college was to graduate with honors. Is your schedule supporting that goal, or is your schedule making it seem like you're training for Nap Taker of the Year based off of what you do? Depending on your goal, you're going to make sure that you're keeping that in mind no matter what you do. Next, use a day-to-day planner for your to-do list, which we'll talk about later, and make sure that you stick to it. Also, make sure you're reducing your distractions. Find a quiet place on campus when your focus can be absolute. Maybe you found that there are too many people at the library, instead a random study area at engineering was much more quiet and peaceful. Just find anywhere that you can really work, that puts you at an adequate amount of peace, and really promotes studying. Additionally, make sure you take steps like turning off your phone, blocking distracting websites, or even studying with someone and agreeing that you both won't get on Facebook. All of these kinds of things can make great differences. Finally, follow a routine. Find blocks that are consistently open in your schedule to work on things and repeat that. Soon you should find that they're pretty second nature and they're not quite as hard to get into that study or action mentality that you need to accomplish them. So now that we know how to organize our day, the next thing we want to know is how to create a workable schedule. So the first thing in doing this is that we want to be able to use a daily or weekly planner. This is a great way to organize your time. Enter everything as soon as you know about it, including due dates, meeting times, locations, scheduled social events, and make sure you include things like phone numbers in case your plans change. Also study time for each class you're taking and more. It's all great. Also make sure you can carry your planner conveniently so that you can easily access it. Even your phone makes for a great planner. Also maintain a to-do list. So we want to try and make this list either daily, weekly, or so on, but only have 5 items or less on the list. That's a very important thing. We don't want to have anything more than 5 items. Put your highest priority on top, which is going to be your most urgent and important. The trick with the to-do list is to not do the most things, but to make sure that your highest priorities get completed. For example, you might have gotten your room clean and your homework completed, but you only got to study for an exam for an hour and it really hurt your grade. Additionally, make sure that you're able to say no to some obligations. Be assertive. If you know that you have something going on and another less important item comes up, say a friend wanting to grab a late night snack, don't be afraid to stick to your guns and say no so that you don't overextend. So now let's go over some scheduling guidelines. First, we want to be able to plan our time in blocks. We want to be able to schedule things throughout our day with nothing in between them. In other words, we want to make sure our day has a pretty good flow from beginning to end. Also, we want to be able to study during our prime times, and we want to be able to schedule that accordingly. Also, don't be afraid to study before classes and after class, and then make sure that you're scheduling your time effectively. Don't waste your time, and don't write down things that you know you're not actually going to do. Don't forget to schedule your non-academic activities. That's stuff like clubs, intramurals, and so on. And don't oversleep on weekends. And we'll go over why in a minute. So whenever we're thinking about our scheduling guidelines, here's kind of a bad example. You can see everything's kind of hectic and there's nothing really specific or really even helpful. All we have written down is that we have class, work, maybe a test, a lab that we don't really know what class is for, nothing but sleep on the weekends, a couple social things, but once again, not very specific and it's not very organized. This is what we want to stay away from. On the other hand, here's what we want to kind of strive for. So this kind of sticks to our guidelines. Here you can see that our time is scheduled in blocks. There's no interruptions in between the things that we have going on throughout our day. That we've realized our prime times for studying, which are in kind of the early morning and late afternoon towards the evening, that we've kind of set times to study before and after class, that our time has been effective. You don't see anything really non-essential or something we don't really care about on here. It's all pretty straight to the point and important things we need to get done. We have some non-academic activities like church, intramurals, professor meetings, those kinds of things. And that we also have things scheduled on the weekends. So a lot of people will schedule nothing on their weekend as far as school goes. And there's good and bad things to this. For one, yes, you are relaxed, but sometimes getting those 2 days filled with things that can help you throughout the week can really make or break your semester. So if you have a class that you know you have to study a little bit more for, don't be afraid to schedule those kinds of things for your weekends, because it can really free you up during the week and leave time to do other things. Finally, we have kind of our semester at a glance. So what a semester at a glance is like kind of a monthly or even a yearly kind of look at how your semester is going to go. And what it does is it helps you to see when you're going to be the most busy and when you're not, so that you can kind of plan accordingly. So here's an example. You can see that my Wednesdays are typically more busy than, say, my Mondays or Fridays, which means that I could probably prepare for things on those 2 days. When Wednesday, I'm not going to have a lot of time, so I need to be ready for those days. So this is kind of what we mean by a semester at a glance.
So whenever you're considering a planner, a good one is something like this. So this is available at Barnes & Noble at the campus bookstore. And what you're going to look for in a planner is, one, make sure that it's a year long. So here you can see that it's a 2016-2017 calendar. What you want on the inside, or your content, is a bunch of different things. So first of all, try and find a planner where you have a good week split in between 2 pages. You want enough room where you can write down everything going on throughout your day, and try and find one that's split into hours, like this one going from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. That way you're going to make sure that if there's anything you run into throughout your day, you're going to be able to write it down. Plus, this planner is really easy to carry around, so you can always make sure it's in your backpack, a purse, anything like that. So whenever you're picking a planner, this is the kind of choice you want to make.
So let's go over some benefits of a time schedule. While you might think a time schedule will actually make your schedule rigorous and unable to change, it's actually quite the opposite. A time schedule allows you to control your time better. You become less lazy while keeping your goals actually in mind. Tests become easier to study for when you spread it out for a week instead of the night before, and so on and so forth. In fact, a study by the UCLA actually showed that students who crammed the night before a test and sacrificed sleep did significantly worse on exams than those who planned their time better. Additionally, don't you feel better when you complete something you needed to do and have time to relax? Trying to relax while you know you have something to do can actually cause a spike in mental anxiety, stress, and overall is just much more detrimental in its essence. Planning your time also saves time. Instead of taking things as they are while being totally unprepared, you can tackle your obstacles and obligations and be ready for whatever might be next. Finally, your time schedule actually increases your flexibility. If you have a friend that comes into town unexpectedly, for example, your schedule allows you to spend time with that friend and reschedule your usual work to somewhere else in your week and shows what time you actually have available. So now let's go over some helpful tips to manage time. We've already talked about keeping a to-do list and making sure that you're making one every day, but also keep your work with you. You never know when you're going to catch a break, and that's valuable time that you can spend studying, even though it's not very long, as opposed to just watching YouTube for 45 minutes. Don't be afraid to say no. Like we said, make sure you can be assertive. Others shouldn't be able to take your time away at will when it will cause you stress or harm. Also, find your productive time. Maybe you find yourself more productive in the afternoons rather than the mornings. Maybe studying after lunch turns into more of a contest to stay awake. Make sure that you're at your best so that you can tackle your more difficult obligations when you study, and you can save your less important or difficult obligations for times when you don't necessarily have to be at your most alert. Make sure there's time throughout your week solely dedicated to studying, and then make sure you aren't just studying. Budget your time with friends, working out, doing a hobby, and those kinds of things. If you do those kinds of things, you can actually help your mental, physical, and spiritual health, and it will actually help you to focus whenever you're working or studying. Also, don't get sidetracked. Don't study in places that are typically associated with leisure, like in front of the TV or in your living room. They can become distracting even without people there. Find a spot where as soon as you sit down, you know you're going to study, and studying is all you're going to do. Don't eat while you study, turn off your electronics, and make sure you're on your A game. Finally, sleep. A Stanford study found that sleeping around 8 hours, give or take an hour over or under, is the best. Too much or too little sleep can really affect how you perform the next day, making it harder to study, harder to focus, making you feel more drowsy, and more. Sleep is the
So
key.
there's only one thing left to do when it comes to your time management. What if there's things that you're afraid that you're missing out on? If you're looking for a club or another kind of group that you can join that's going to look good on your resume and kind of help develop you as a person, never be afraid to check out the campus activities calendar. If you go online to campus activities for NMSU, they do have a calendar that's day by day throughout the semester that'll show you all the groups that are having meetings, activities, anything like that that's going on. It's also a great way to see if NMSU is hosting any events. So if there's ever a time where you feel like you're a little bored or could be doing something productive with your time, that's the first place to go. And you can see that with the slide that's going to be posted next. Thanks. Alright everyone, well that's it for time management. If there's ever any questions you have, feel free to check out some of the resources available on NMSU's campus. Whether it's the NMSU Student Success Center, if you want to go by career services, or even talk to your advisor. Make sure that you're getting out there and seeing everything the college has to offer. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.